Back at you with another episode coming at you from chooseyourrelationships.com, author of Love Can't Wait, which can be found on amazon.com. And today I have a special guest. She's an author of a new book called Shit Adults Never Taught Us. And her name is Natasha Sattler. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, yeah, welcome. So let's talk about the book. so, the
Let's
book,
dive in.
yeah, yeah, of course, the title grabs most people's attention, I would think, you
Yeah,
know, yeah. First, where you from?
I grew up on the East Coast outside Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
Maryland. And then I live in Los Angeles now.
Oh,
So I've
that's
been out here about 10 years.
wow. That's probably a
Yeah.
culture shock.
It was at first, but
Yeah.
now I'm very, very used to it and a little over it, I would say.
Okay. Cool.
California is really nice because you come for the weather, but eventually it gets old.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. So, how did the book come about?
The book came about entirely by accident. Obviously, we all found ourselves with a little bit more time than we planned during 2020. And I spent the first bit of 2020 furloughed when the pandemic hit. And I did what everybody else did. I watched all of Netflix and the internet. And then I started having conversations with friends I've had for years. And it was conversations that were deeper than we had ever had before. And the through line of a lot of those conversations was we don't know a lot of things and there's a lot of gaps in our knowledge, but everyone keeps these things to ourselves. So I started compiling a lot of this information and put it in a document that eventually turned into a book. It was written over 6 weeks in the fall of 2020. And Shit Adults Never Taught Us is divided into 4 sections. So the first section is career and money shit, and then relationship shit, and then mind shit, and then life shit. And the career and money stuff is like taxes and 401ks and side hustles and negotiating bills, like all the stuff nobody ever really talks to you about, but everyone seems to just know. And then the relationship shit covers everything from having the courage to fall in love all the way through to surviving a breakup and everything in between that gets you through the tough times of a relationship, maintaining great times in a relationship, every type of relationship from lust to limerence to love addiction, and also covers, siblings and parents and friendships and how to make and maintain friendships as an adult. The mind shit is more the mental health section that covers depression, anxiety, overthinking, catastrophic thinking, everything in between, and just helps you sort of clear out all the mental garbage that gets trapped up there. And then the life shit is all the other stuff, like protecting your privacy online and traveling and figuring out what's worth your time in life and how to ask questions that maybe got a little further along in life and feel like you should know by now, and finding the appropriate ways to set boundaries with people, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. So, of course, when the chapter that got my attention is the relationship shit because,
Yeah, that one grabs a lot of people.
yeah. Really?
That's a good section. The two sections that seem to be the ones people want to talk about most are relationship and mind. Because
Wow.
money, we probably learned all of the money and career shit, but it's so boring that we just skipped it and our brains didn't filter it in like high school and college. And so that's why I wrote this book in short chapters. Every chapter is 3 pages or less, and they're all funny because it's
Yeah.
boring stuff or it's stuff no one wants to talk about. So I put it in a way that's like more digestible. Yeah, let's dive into the relationship section.
Yeah, that's the part that well, when I first saw the title, I guess it's just general stuff, you know. But then when I went to Amazon and when I looked inside, I said, "Oh, okay, this is a little bit more than
Yeah.
what I thought."
Yeah, it looks like a life manual, but it's a little bit deeper because it's built on my own personal failures and mistakes and life lessons. And it is a life manual, but it's
so
like
so
funny.
is it based on your time living in LA or just
It's based on my entire life. I feel like I've lived a lot of lifetimes, and it's based on conversations that I've had with friends. So there are stories in there that are lessons I've learned through friends having to make mistakes and learn things the hard way, as well as myself having to learn things the hard way, things I've observed. I've, been in therapy for a lot of years. I was raised by a therapist. There's a lot of things that I've
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. You
yeah,
were raised by a therapist.
I was raised by a child psychologist. My mom was a child
Whoa.
psychologist. Yeah.
That's not a common thing.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
It's not common.
Yeah. It's a different way of life, I would say, but
Yeah.
I don't think, like, my brother and I were experiments in any way. We may have been more observed than
Yeah.
other kids, and things were like, I was talking to somebody today, and she was talking about, reading to children when they're younger, and my parents read to me a lot, but my mom also put the closed captioning on the TV because it was, like, tricking me into reading when I thought I was just watching TV. But now I know how to spell words that most people wouldn't know how to spell because, like, I'm watching a TV show right now. I still keep the closed captioning on all the time, and I'm watching a TV show right now called Dope Sick, and I would not know how to spell all of the medications and things that they talk about on that show if I wasn't watching it with closed captions.
Gotcha. So, so let's talk about LA. What do you think about dating in LA?
Dating in LA is really hard because it's a city of a lot of transplants. So most of the people living in LA did not grow up at here and
Oh,
are here for a specific reason or cause, and usually that is their career. So it's hard to sift through who's dating to date and who's dating to network and get a job, or who's trying to build up their who's who and who they know. But also dating in LA, people tend to be a little flakier. They're not as concrete with their plans. And because people are from other places, you have a lot of different views, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different type of people, which I think makes dating really interesting and fun in LA. But then you can also clash with people more easily because you're going to see the world two different ways.
yeah, I came through. Last time I was in LA was 2016. It was a conference, and
Mm.
it's and before
Picked an
that,
interesting year.
yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah.
yeah, I was there for like a uh kind of internet conference. It was at the Hyatt Hotel by the airport.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was cool. It was a little different. It was like a different vibe compared to being on the East Coast at the time.
Yes.
And
There are things about the East Coast that I really miss. I
yeah,
miss the direct conversations. Like
yeah. Oh yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
in LA, you can have a conversation with someone for 5 or 10 minutes and talk about nothing. You can
Yeah,
literally walk away and be like, "I have no idea any information about that person,
yeah.
except for their career." You will know what they do, but you won't know anything about that person. In
Yeah.
New York, I can talk to somebody in a line at Starbucks and know everything I need to know about that person.
Yeah,
It's
it's
it's a different vibe.
yeah, I met probably two people at the time. One was a man and one was a woman. It I thought they were cool, but
Yeah.
it just it didn't the relationship didn't last. We kind after about I don't know maybe 2 3 months it's kind of filtered out and
And
that
that's
was
bound
it.
to happen in adulthood. Like, there's something where we can only keep a certain, like, a finite amount of people in our lives,
Yeah,
right? We can only have a meaningful connection with like 100, 200 people at once. So people are going to fall off. But I think making a connection on the West Coast is a little bit harder, at least in my experience. I can't
I
speak for
think so.
everyone,
I
but in
think
my experience, it's hard to make a connection.
yeah, that's true. But before 2016, I haven't been in LA since the 90s, and
Oh, yeah.
I noticed that it's changed a lot since then.
Um, Instagram, I think changed LA a
Well,
lot. I know it makes no sense when I say it just in that sentence, but in the 10 years that I've lived here, I really believe that the biggest cultural shift in Los Angeles was Instagram. Things shifted from being real to being cool. So it was every building started, they all got painted yellow and blue and bright pink, and downtown is like a lot of graffiti art that's not real graffiti art anymore. It's street art that somebody was hired and curated to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the brands that pop up, all the stores that pop up, their display windows are based for Instagram. They're not based for like what they actually sell. And it's all about curating this lifestyle. Like, we're so glamorous. LA is very Hollywood and glamorous, or whatever they're trying to curate, that it feels like you're walking around an Instagram story that's been perfectly curated in a lot of parts of LA. And that, to me, it's very off-putting.
Yeah, it's I was kind of like, I think after the second day, because conference was 4 days. After the second day, I was like, man, I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, it's also an exhausting city because you're in your car a lot, you're traveling around, the traffic is constant. It can be a really tiring city.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't driving. I didn't.
That's good.
I was catching Uber and just walking. Really. So it was. I
Yeah.
was kind of disappointed, to be honest.
Yeah, things in LA are spread out, they're very far apart, and then, to go to the good restaurants, you have to wait in line, and it can be kind of difficult.
Yeah.
It's a unique city. That's what a lot of people I've met like to
Yeah. It's
say.
very unique. Yeah.
They're like, "It's a unique city," and I'm like, "That's a really nice way of saying
Yeah.
not as good as other cities."
But you got to look at it like this: there's no place like New York, L.A., Chicago,
Yeah,
Miami, Houston. I mean, these places are mega cities. So there's,
and that's what's so cool about our country is that all the major cities are wildly different.
yeah,
Like, you can go to certain places that their 3 main cities of a certain country are very, very similar.
yeah,
Ours are all wildly different, so you can get a different experience, and it's like, choose your own adventure. I like that.
yeah. Me too. It's like if you don't like something about where you live, you can drive 2 hours away. It's completely different.
Yep. Yeah, and you could be in a different state. You can be in
Yeah,
a completely different place. It's a really interesting country to live in. I agree.
yeah. Other like countries that I've been to, it's not like that. It's like
Yeah.
it's like everywhere you go, it's about the same old, same old.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on where you go, but for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So, why did you, how did you come up with the idea to even write a book anyway? I mean,
So it wasn't an intentional book. I didn't know what it was gonna be. Once the 6 weeks of writing were done and I was just sort of done spewing all the information stuck in my brain onto a document, I didn't know what it was gonna be. I didn't know if it was gonna be a website, I didn't know if it was gonna be a blog. The concept of a book was brought up, and I figured, "You know what? I've never done that. That could be really cool, and I also have no idea how to do it." And so when the blueprint was in front of me, I was like, "Okay, I can do this now." So from the time that I finished writing to the time that it published was 6 months. And
that's
the
good.
book is now available on Amazon and Barnes& and Noble and Google Play Books and Apple Books, and I without, like, an editor having, a few rounds of edits and people sort of steering the book or editing all of my horrible grammar and spelling mistakes, and then having publishing and marketing campaigns, like, if it had been in any other form, it wouldn't have been right. And the reason I did a book was a couple of things. The first was, like I said, each chapter, each topic is 3 pages. It's very easily digestible. I don't know about you, but like when I Google something, I get very overwhelmed by the results. And you can click the first link and get an answer, and then you can click the second link and get a totally different answer. And I didn't want to just insert information into the ether of the internet and just hope for the best. Like, this is a highly researched book, and a lot of the information in it is unbiased and discerned from various sources that the internet goes unchecked. And so I didn't want it to be placed on the internet, but I wrote it as a guide. It's a manual, it's not a novel. I don't want anybody to read it's a,
Big
like,
job.
decently sized book, it's 300 pages. I didn't want anybody to read it cover to cover because it isn't a novel. There's not, like, a love story you have to follow. It's just a book to help you. So you pick it up, you open to the chapters that you need in your life today, and then you put it back on a shelf. And when your life changes in 6 months, you pick it up and you read the chapters that pertain to you. And the same is true like with the relationship section. You could read half that section and then take that information, bring it into your relationship, and then you could be in a totally different relationship with a totally different person in a year. Read those chapters over, and they're going to mean something entirely different to you because now you're reading it from a totally different mindset.
Yeah.
So it's not meant, it's a resource. It's not meant to just be something that you read once and you're changed forever. That's not, it's a guide to help you through life. You will not read this book and suddenly be a totally different person. So yeah, to answer your question, I think it had to be a book. There was no other medium that would give you that kind of resource.
Yeah, I think so you actually have people around you that knew how to like knew the process and everything.
I do. That is one of the nice parts of living in Los Angeles is that when it comes to creative things, there are quite a few people around that know what they're talking about. And I was lucky enough that I have friends in publishing and I was able to seek out mentors and I just reached out to people who wrote books that I liked and got decent amounts of information from people learning through their own experiences. And Amazon allows you to publish directly, so does Barnes and Noble. I shopped it around to a couple of places. Didn't really love the process of going with a book publisher, so I ended up self-publishing the book.
Yeah, what
They
type of
take too long.
yeah, well, of course, yeah. What type of responses did you get from publishers?
There's a couple of things. One, they weren't quite sure what the audience is because people like to know what age range a book is going to be.
Yeah.
And they're like, is this for college kids? Because it sounds like a manual to life you would get at graduation, which it totally is. But I don't want to close off the person who's 40 and going through a divorce and needs some help. Like, this should also apply to them. So, when it comes to demographics, that's where a lot of the disjointed interactions were. And then there was a lot of like, okay, well, in order to do this, you have to have a bigger social media presence, which is definitely not me. Or you have to, uh, a lot of it was like, you have to use our editors and you have to go through this process. And at the time that I was shopping it around, I'd already gone through one round of editing to it's the first round, which is called developmental editing, where you take your initial sort of word vomit on a page and they sculpt it into something where they cut out whole pages, whole sections, and they're like, all right, this is good, expand on this, use more examples here, tell a story here. So I'd already built that out, and a lot of publishing houses wanted to do that all over again, which was not of interest to me. And it was going to take, it could have been another 6 months, another year. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, I just need to edit this and check for spelling and get it out into the world. And I didn't want to spend an extra year doing that round.
Yeah, the reason why I asked because I've never tried getting a book deal. I've never tried.
It's weirdly hard because you'd think like there's so many books out there, but
Yeah.
the way the process works is sort of like we love it, we love it. Now we want to change everything about it. And that was it's off-putting. It's a little
Yeah.
disheartening to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people say it. You might write something and you might like it. As soon as you turn everything in, they'll change an entire chapter.
Yeah. Or
What?
cut whole chapters out.
Yeah, I said, "Oh my god, that's how it is." Yeah, they'll do that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, man. So that's when I first the first I never wanted to write a book, never. I didn't even know you could self publish until um a friend of mine came over and I had this document on my computer at the time. This is like what 2015, and she came over and started reading it, and she said, "Hey, you need to publish this." Then I said, "What do you mean? Like put it in a book?" I said, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that."
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and you can.
I didn't even know this because I'm not around any creative people, not really, especially then, So I just went on Google and started, I put in a search, and I said, "Oh, you can do this." And then probably I got an editor. I paid like probably $400 or $500 at a time, and somebody did the cover. and somebody did the format inside, and that was it. And then,
Yeah.
but it didn't sell.
The hardest part for me is the marketing of the book.
Yeah,
That is 100% the hardest part. Because 'cause I'm
yeah,
like, "I thought writing it and editing it was gonna be hard," and that felt easy,
yeah,
and then when you're done, everybody's like, "Well, why should I read this?" And I'm like, "'Cause it's good. 'Cause
yeah,
it's funny, 'cause it's got a lot of information, 'cause it's gonna change your life, and 'cause self-help books suck, and when you need help on a topic, you have to buy a different book for each topic, and so I fixed that. And that's not enough, you have to give a lot more information when you market a
yeah.
book.
And then, well, I learned my lesson on the first book
Mhm.
when it came to that. And the second book, people were actually, I was actually listening to my audience because I had a YouTube channel at the time. I was actually listening to what they were saying, and so I started, taking little notes here and there or whatever. So
Yeah,
after about, I think, after about 10 chapters, I just wrote every chapter based on the questions that I was getting, and
that's
after
the way to do it.
about 40,000 words, I cut it down to about 20 something, about half. And then I did the same thing again, got an editor, somebody did the cover and format and everything. And that shit flew off the shelf.
Yeah, and when you make content that people want, that's
Yeah,
so much easier to sell. The reason I wrote the book was it was conversations I was having with people, and when you know that these conversations are happening in your life, you're like, "Oh, these conversations have to be happening for other people." And now marketing it and doing podcasts and things, I've done so many amazing podcasts with people who are like, well, what about this topic? And we dive deeper into the book, or somebody's reading the book and they message me on Instagram and they're like, okay, so I'm reading it and I have some follow up questions. I love that because
yeah,
it keeps the conversation going. It doesn't stop at the book. And I encourage it 100%.
yeah. But it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of
Oh
work.
my God.
It's a
I
full
didn't,
time job when you're doing
yeah,
it.
I kind of underestimated how much work it was going to be because, I
Yeah.
didn't, I think like I said, the first book, like I said, it was basically just a bunch of documents laying on my computer, and it was there for like 4 years. It was stuff that I just wrote randomly that I was going to use to post on my blog.
Yeah.
So it was. So the second book, I kind of went. Uh, I think I wrote half of it at my cousin's house when I was on a vacation, and then the the rest of it I just I did a like a page every day for like 6 months. So it took me like a year and a half on the second one. And
Yeah. The second one seems to take longer. I started mine and it takes a lot longer.
yeah, and the third book I was like, I'm never doing this shit again.
I have already with the second one like reached that where I'm like, all right, maybe two is enough. This is
Yeah, this shit.
it's a whole process. I don't
And
know.
plus, I was like, I don't know what else I can say.
Right.
I don't know. I
I
don't
have to
know.
go live more life, so I have more stuff to say. The
Yeah,
first book was 30 years of life.
yeah, yeah.
So you got to go live more life to get more material.
I don't. So, what type of response have you gotten? Like when people see the cover, they're like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, I get a lot of that. I get a lot of the title captured me, but honestly, once people read it, they love it. I haven't gotten anybody that's like, this sucks. Like, nobody, I don't know, maybe the internet's really nice to
I
me,
had one
but
person. I had one
yeah,
person.
it's always one, right? No,
Yeah,
I really like talking to people who are reading the book because I get insight that I would never get otherwise. Like, yeah, there are reviews, but I don't like reading reviews. What I like is the interaction that I get with people. Like, if I had never written a book, I would never talk to any of the people I've talked to.
yeah,
And that for me is the coolest thing. Like, I'm getting to meet people all over the world. I'm getting to do podcast interviews, and some of it's the coolest part of it is what's come after the book.
yeah. So, what are some things you wish you knew at an early age?
There are so many things. The number one thing I wish I had not accidentally unlearned is to ask questions. I feel like a lot of people, they probably raised their hand in class one day and asked a question, and some kid was like, "That's stupid." And then they never asked questions ever again. And we just started asking Google. And I wish I had never learned to stop asking questions. I also wish I had learned that it's okay not to apologize for what I want, and to not to when making decisions, to not disappoint myself. So you can cater to a lot of people out there, and that's okay, but sometimes not disappointing yourself is the way to make a decision, and it's not selfish. It's perfectly fine to take yourself into account when making decisions.
Yeah. So, um, I would say, what do your parents think?
Of the book?
Family, yeah, parents, your
Oh, they
family.
like it. I sent it to them. They were the first people to actually read it back when it was, like, really messy little drafts, because, I have a lot of people in the book that I talk about. I talk about, exes and friends and coworkers, and you can say my friend. You can't be like, so this one time I had a mom who, like, everyone knows who that person is. So I gave it to them first to be like, just to make sure you're okay. Like, I talk about some of your shitty parenting techniques, just making sure we're cool with it. So yeah, they're very, very kind about the book. They're very supportive. They're amazing parents. Like, I had such an incredible upbringing, and I'm so fortunate. And a lot of what's in the book they taught me. So they should get, some credit for it.
Yeah. So you think if you think your experiences was based on you writing a book, or you don't think your experiences or your upbringing had very little to do with it?
I think my upbringing was very creative. I was encouraged to choose creative outlets. And so this was just another creative outlet. I've always been the person that's like, brain is simultaneously organized and creative. And this was the culmination of that.
Gotcha. So if people wanted to buy your book or reach out to you on the internet, where would they go?
They would go to Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Apple Books, or Google Play Books and look for Shit Adults Never Taught Us.
Gotcha.
Oh, and to find me on the internet, I'm at Shit Adults Never Taught Us on Instagram, or you can email shitadultsnevertaughtus at gmail.com. I like talking to people who have read the book. Email me.
Gotcha. So share this episode. All show notes will be in the bio or below the video if you're looking at us on YouTube. Until next time, we out. Peace.